Hello, Keri. You're in Recife. How are you? You look a bit
Yeah,
hot.
Recife in Brazil. Yeah, it's pretty hot today. Yeah, we had a lot of rain yesterday, so the humidity's up, but it's in the high 30s, I think, today, and very bright, hot sunshine. So a far cry from the weather for many of your viewers back in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. You look like a melting Englishman at the moment. You're a bit red in the cheeks. Maybe it's the bright sunshine.
I think it's
Anyway,
the bright sunshine. Yeah.
yeah, you'll probably laugh because I've got to go to England next weekend. But this weekend they're getting hammered. They got ice and snow and all that sort of stuff. Apparently, anyway, part of the course. So we
Oh,
haven't
they
really,
have.
yeah, we haven't really spoken since Cape Town. So let's just walk it through. So the Cape Town to Recife leg, bit of a nightmare for you. What's your memories on that? Give us a quick
Not a
explanation.
nightmare. No, not a nightmare. I lost 4 or 5 days.
Yeah,
But I knew that was the case. I mean, when people were allowed to motor, they could get out of that wind shadow of Table Mountain very quickly. And I
yeah,
didn't. I sat there for 2.5 days, and then ended up in a different weather regime, both going towards St. Helena, where the back of the fleet tended to have, I caught the back of the fleet, but they had tended to have less breeze, and certainly on the leg from St. Helena to Recife, even though it looked as though there'd be a bit of compression in the fleet at one point with a lighter wind ahead and good breeze following behind it, was never the case. We just, the sort of difference between the lead boats, back boats just extended because we were in different weather conditions. So,
yeah,
yeah, it's kind of taken away my opportunity to sort of fight for second place. This put me in a position to defend third place. So Pilar are relatively close now. But I don't mind. The next leg's a bit more tactical, a bit more interesting, less processional. There's still doldrums, so people, if they want to use their engines, they can. I still think that's a shame. It's not a. It takes away the sort of real element of yacht racing, in my perspective. But hey, I chose to do it that way. And as I said to you, I'd rather come last and not use my engine than use an engine and push for a good position that I wouldn't feel at ease personally with in a yacht race. So it is what it is. That's just me being silly and stubborn, perhaps. But
yeah,
I didn't see it as a disaster. And I think any race where you're learning stuff is good. I think a lot of advice coming out of the Royal Cape Yacht Club is if you couldn't get to the strong wind to the west immediately, you had to work the shore before the high filled in, and that's what worked for the Cape to Rio fleet that started the day before. Anybody who went outside of Robben Island did very badly. And so when there was a bit of breeze that did fill in, it was the temptation was to so go back to the right. And I just left that a bit sooner perhaps than I should have done, because you end up surging up towards a breaking surf line, and it feels quite uncomfortable. So you jibe out from that, and that brings you back towards Robben Island. So it sort of fixed my fate for the leg and for the overall race, really. But yeah, I have no regrets. It
yeah,
is what it is.
yeah. Okay, and so what about
I don't see
Recife?
it as. I did notice. I did notice your. So I did know. Sorry, just in your commentary, you did say, "Oh, tactical error" and what have you. I think you just have to put it in the context of what I was trying to do and why I was trying to do it. I don't see it as that at all. It was a strategic error maybe in my reluctance to motor sail, but they're not tactical. I think I played
Yeah.
some good tactics.
Oh, nothing's ever an error. I don't think ever. Oh, I'm sorry if I said it was an error. Nothing's ever an error. You just make your choices. That's the bottom line. But it was excruciating
Yeah.
to watch. I've got to tell you, it was like holy dooly. It was just from our perspective, we're just pulling our hair out, thinking this is just. Anyway, so I meant to say I said receipt, but what about Saint Helena? What's your strong memory from there?
St. Helena, I mean, it's unique. Like other islands, British international overseas territories I've visited. So, like Tristan da Cunha, like Ascension, there's nothing really that compares. It rises from the middle of the Southern Atlantic. The people live in very remote conditions, and they've been beset by problems. A relatively recent airport that they've had. They've had some problem with their fire tenders and classification of those. So the airport shut for the moment. Just gives you a sense of how isolated they are. That they're back at the moment to relying on some of their ship deliveries and clearly not getting so many tourists in. So that will have a big impact on them. And I think that just underlines the nature of that community. They're incredibly welcoming, friendly, in the way that islanders are with sailors. I think there's a sort of affinity between the two. that resourcefulness and independence and remoteness all comes to play. But I think really the standout moment for it was when Jasmine, almost without any consultation with us or any prior preparation, she just decided, talking to the sort of tourism office, when they said there was an American swimming team coming out for the first attempt to swim around it, and she just jumped in the water at 2 a.m. and swam around. I have to say, I was glued to my screen watching that, wishing her, willing her to get round in a good time. And I'm just absolutely in awe that she spent 19 hours in the water in pretty atrocious conditions. It's still relatively cold. It was a nasty current running. There was a big chop and swell, and she didn't have that sort of open water swimming kit on. She had a standard beach swimming costume. She'd borrowed some goggles. I mean, I'm just in awe of the woman. I think she did it brilliantly, and she reflected really well on us as the mini globe racers, rather vicariously. Her achievement, whilst perhaps eclipsing our race achievement in the South Atlantic, we were all, tarred with that same brush, really. So, yeah, big congratulations to her. I think she did amazingly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, again, we were glued to our seats and watching what's going on, and in the end, she's had a profound impact on me in a lot of different ways. I was trying to imagine it in the dark, stroke, stroke, stroke. What's going on in your head? You're not looking at the fish. You're not looking. I was completely.
Yeah.
I just it had a big impact on me, that thing. Yep, all good. Oh, I've lost you a bit.
By any stretch of imagination. And normally, the last thing I'd be interested in watching is somebody swimming, but it was beyond that. It was just an example of remarkable resourcefulness, strength of character, courage, hardiness. I mean, there was a time in the military we were sort of lamenting perhaps the demise of grit in our armed forces.
Yeah.
And I think she was the sort of epitome of that, true grit, a remarkable achievement. And she and I have got a few ideas for something else to do in the future, but more down the interesting coastal rowing, because we both think that the ocean crossing rowing vessels are pretty sluggish and principally sort of wind driven, but there are some opportunities around coastal rowing, and particularly some of the sort of craft that have been designed by sort of Gary Angus, which are really remarkable. So there's some opportunities there for her to, maybe I can support her both for a build and then maybe doing a twin rower attempt or something. There's some options anyway. We're talking about them, but I think, okay, I'd have to sort of maintain or be as tough as her, and I think I am in many ways, but I don't know where her real inner strength comes from when she's in the water. It's absolutely incredible.
That's amazing. Because all I'll say at the moment, on your to comment on your statement just then, is just remember this: Romeo Oscar Romeo, and it'll all make sense later on. Because she completely blew me away. But just remember that: Romeo Oscar Romeo. Okay, and then you can start making some plans.
Okay.
Just
Romeo Oscar Romeo.
Just remember Romeo Oscar Romeo. Anyway, that's another story. So back to, but I got to agree.
That's rule of the road. I need to go into that.
Yeah, something like that. You work it out end of March, But anyway, St. Helena was pretty special.
Yeah, I'll ask what it means.
Sorry. Don't miss that anyway. Okay,
so you're breaking up a little bit. I've got some motorboats, fishing boats being busted.
Yeah. Okay, so now you're in Recife. It's hot and sweaty. Carnival's on. Are you, you getting involved with partying, or you're focused on the next leg? And what's next?
Oh, so the next leg's been really interesting. I've been doing Carnival, and I really like Olinda, the old city. I'm not so interested in the world record breaking street party that's going on at the moment. 2 to 3 million people.
Three
had to barricade a lot of.
Hang on a sec.
The town.
Tell me about what's happening. It's because someone.
So I've had
the 3 million people, and it started at 9 o'clock.
So it's a street party. Yeah. And actually, they'd started in true Brazilian form by 6. I mean, they don't finish till 4 in the morning. They're back at
Yeah,
it at 6 in the morning with the music. But there's a street parade party, and it is a. We were doing a similar thing in Linda yesterday, but it's a sort of old UNESCO World Heritage City. Beautiful cobbled streets, very narrow. Everybody in costumes, very skimpy or sequin costumes. We're all covered in glitter. We're all dancing. We're drinking caipirinhas from, street corners as we go along, and incredible. There's a remarkable festive atmosphere, but without any aggro or grievance. And whilst people say, "Oh, don't wear your watch," or be careful with your valuables, I think they refer more to today's event in Recife, as I say, where they still hold the Guinness Book of Records for the biggest street party, and I think it's about 3 million participants that parade through the street.
that's great.
Each subgroup with its own sort of brass band and drums, and it's a cacophony in the senses. And very attractive young Brazilian men and women, very scantily clad, and it's incredible. But it's really a wonderful festive atmosphere. And I'm not doing that so much today. There are a couple of other sideline issues going on. And they bring into focus a little bit more the potential risks and complexities of what we do when we solo sail offshore. So I have one close friend and one I know less well acquaintance, one of whom was sort of shipwrecked on one of the islands off Natal, off Brazil, the route we're about to take. He ran up a reef, came off his boat, and he's trying to sort of get his boat back. The other was airlifted, well, by ship and then air, and is in hospital, but came off his yacht between St. Helena and Recife, but he was sailing more towards the Caribbean. Going to go and see him as a close friend. Yeah, we just, as we all said the last leg, this is very benign, but I think it just draws into focus that when it does go wrong, it can go wrong quite quickly. And then there's the additional layers of complexity. They're both American sailors. When you come into a country that demands a visa, but you come in an emergency, you're not you're not exonerated of the visa requirements, and technically, once you leave hospital, you have to leave the country. So we're just trying to sort of work out how we can reunite both of them with their boats, recover their boats, get them back so they can continue their voyage. But I think that for me just puts it back into perspective that, yeah, we've made it look relatively easy so far, but
Yeah,
these sailors too were coming to the end of their global circumnavigation, and they didn't lower their guard. They weren't unprofessional. They just, happenstance. They hit scenarios and conditions that didn't really work in their favor.
yeah. I don't think I heard. I think I might have heard about one of those. I didn't know about that, but anyway, that's a story for later. Yeah, that's bad luck. I hope it works out okay.
Yeah, I think we, I'm sure it will work out okay. We're still keeping it sort of relatively under wraps, but yeah, it's doing what we
Yeah,
can for our
absolutely.
friends to enable them to continue with their voyages.
Yeah, yeah. Well, your theme and mine are the same on that. We make it look too easy, but you just never know what's around the corner. So, so what do you see as the biggest challenge?
No,
You've got peeler breathing down your neck, and you've got a lot more beam winds and doldrums and stuff. You know,
yeah. So that's my one regret with this sort of losing so many days on the last leg. I would really like to have given Dan Turner a better race to the finish. I think he deserves it. I think having the three boats in the mix at the front was more interesting, particularly when Renault was just so dominant. And I'd really like to see somebody else win the next leg. I'd like it to be me. If it weren't me, then I'd like it to be Dan or Pilar, who've continually been up there. I think some of the other sailors had a good leg last time, but I think that was, from my perspective, that was more of a mulligan. I don't see them particularly as a threat. Pilar, I rate Pilar as one of the best sailors in lighter winds, upwinds that I've seen in the fleet.
yeah,
Um, she's certainly, I felt she's the only one like in light winds, upwind that she's come close to. origami speed and height. So that could be interesting. And she potentially she'll use her engine, but she only carries one battery. She's not one of the boats that has a number of different batteries that isn't so dependent on solar panel charging. I think we'll see some overcast days, so management of electricity will be interesting anyway. I'm trying to get my solar panels. I think we've all reached the conclusion that the very fancy, expensive bayonet fitting plug-in solar panel connectors designed especially for yachts, actually for us, where we're so close to sea level, they don't
Yeah.
really work. They're a weakness in terms they let in water. So we're all pretty much sort of hardwiring everything and shrink wrapping and weatherproofing it. But it means you can't just unplug a panel. They're fixed, and you have to sort of cut the cables when you want to stow them for any long term. So I think they do that. I think the electricity bit of it will still be a bit of a challenge. And there are some, as you've already identified with the one American yacht that hit a reef, there are some interesting natural hazards as we head up towards that top northeast corner of Brazil. And then we have the outflow from the Amazon, potential for logs. We've got more turgid water, big currents, and some interesting wind directions. So the tactical bit of it, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm feeling confident. I know origami performs well in those conditions, and we all were looking forward to a departure from dead running.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think its last leg into Antigua is going to be great fun.
Yeah, too true. What's just common question to a lot of people? What's your sleep pattern? That like even in the trades, what were your usual sleep routines?
Well, I was very surprised how quickly the days went. I mean, we sort of rather, we've become very spoiled, really, and we're sailing in beautiful conditions. We say, "Oh, it's
Oh,
Groundhog
yeah,
Day," but many people would give their right arm to sail in those conditions. So we've got to be a little bit careful that we've been underselling it. But the days go so quickly, and you do have to be in a bit of a routine. I think, like anybody sailing offshore, and it sort of came really from time in command of warships as well, is that you have to sleep is also a weapon. You have to sleep when you can and be as alert as you need to be when it's required, and be prepared to put in some very long shifts when it's really needed. And that can be governed by natural hazards. It can be governed by shipping density and weather conditions, tactical race conditions. Now, on the dead running, you can sleep longer, and offshore, you could sleep longer because there was very little shipping. The Echo Max, I think it's a brilliant item. I've talked about it before. You can pick up any larger vessel, fishing vessel, a merchant ship, or warship. You'll pick up their radar signature over the horizon. You may never see them. And if you do want to sort of home in on them, you can switch your AIS on and have a look. But often you're picking them up on the radar warner outside AIS range. So that bit allows you to sleep a little bit more. But it's always still just catnapping, really.
yeah.
And I
When you
don't
get
particularly like to sleep during the day. So yeah, I can try and catch some sleep when I can during the night hours, which is a bit cooler. And you also have, with navigation lights, we can, paradoxically, we can be more evident by night sometimes than we are by day, particularly with the sort of quality of LED navigation lights we have. Our visible range is very good. So I would say sleep at most an hour at a time, but I'm very
yeah,
comfortable with that. We've been doing that. That's a lot more than when we were in coastal waters, where it might only be 25 minutes at a time. But we're all very comfortable with that, I think. And I don't feel I come in and I feel tired for the reasons I explained. If you're making a landfall, you've got to husband your sleep beforehand, so you come in fully alert. So by the time I arrive in any destination, I'm not having to rush off to a hotel and air conditioning and sleep, because I've kind of already done all that. I'm already in a position that I've got those reserves, and I haven't burnt the reserves through the passage, because I think if
yeah,
you do, that's when you risk you sort of court disaster if you're not careful. Things can go horribly wrong very quickly, and that's certainly the
yeah, yeah,
case of one of the yachts that's had misfortunes off Brazil recently.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about your Aries and autopilots? What's the story there? Because I mean, the Aries is good. It's obviously working really well, but
So I
you know,
had I don't really use. Yeah, I still think I'm not. We're still not haven't got the same quality of course holding and your control as the sort of rudder and hydrovane so I call the twin rudder configuration. However, that's setting up, it works better. There's no doubt about it. They can carry more sail area and they yaw less. But the Aries, I would say, is the next best thing. I have great respect for, in this case, for Josh and Adam, who are still sailing with their South Atlantic. And, many of us didn't get on with those as well in what we were trying to achieve. And you look at the last leg, particularly Adam, and what he's done with the South Atlantic is truly remarkable. And I know he was focused on, he felt if he made another daggerboard back aft, the longer one, like I started making the Aries configuration meant I couldn't apply the curved ones I built in Antigua. So I've never used any, but Adam wanted to make a longer one, and I said, I think for the next leg, it's not required. You're not dead running anymore. I think that's when that plays. So the Aries is a really good all-rounder, and it's very good on the tight reach. We saw that coming into Great Barrier Reef, when I took a lot of distance out of Renault and closed him right down by coming through Flinders Channel and right into where we stopped at Thursday Island. Went from about
Yeah.
a 5-hour lead to a 1-hour lead. It was an amazing day sailing. So the Aries is good. The boat's being sold with this Aries. Otherwise, I would have willingly kept it, put it on rumor. As a backup for a 36-foot yacht I have, which I think it would be a brilliant piece of kit. So I'm looking for a good second-hand one now. I think it's outstanding. I don't really use a tiller pilot. There's very few conditions it can really cope with dead running. I think some of the boats, Dan Turk used to drive his wind pilot with his tiller pilot. So take away the flapping vane that we're all familiar with seeing and drive it on the fluxgate compass of the tiller pilot. And I think Renault said he'd been doing that, but I haven't seen how he's mounted it, and that may or may not be what he's done. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't use it. I'm low on electricity, and I really like the Aries now. It
Yeah.
needs constant adjustment, and I think that's what I've learned over time. And I think we'd all say, the one thing we've really learned in terms of performance of these boats and this nature of this racing is we've just had to, as you knew from the outset, the one thing we really had to master is sail trim, where we're teasing. Often we're teasing sails into configurations they're not really designed for. But the thing that really needs mastery is the sort of wind pilot, be it a hydrovane, be it a Aries, be it a wind pilot
Yeah. You got
or
to
a
know how to
South
fly it.
Atlantic.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's
Well, that's all.
micro, and it's like an adjustment. I have a line either side that centers a tiller, but I'm adjusting it 2 or 3 millimeters as the wind changes or the wind pattern changes. And, I think it's fascinating talking to Renault because he really takes that analysis to a step further in terms of where he sits on the impact of primary swell, secondary swell, what balanced center of lateral effort of the sail plan vice the center of buoyancy of the hull. He takes that to a great level. Exceptional. He's the wizard of it, and it shows in the results. It's where I think a lot of his
Yeah.
skill is derived. It doesn't come by chance. He puts a lot of work into it. You can't afford to be complacent and just put up one set of sails and that's it. That's your lot for the whole leg. And what also is worth explaining to your viewers is that you set it up with you in the cockpit, and this is if you're planning to sleep and then you go down below and you moved your weight forward and you've moved your weight outboard to a bunk, you've changed the whole trim of the boat. So
Oh,
your
boy.
1 or 2
Yes.
millimeters might not be the right way.
Yep.
Yeah, that
I
was
know exactly what
fascinating,
you
and
mean.
it's yeah, and reliable in the extreme. I mean, it's incredible. Although some people have had some issues, interestingly, more issues with the hydrovanes on minor component failure. I think that's something for Tom and the team to think about. Uh, we give them quite a hard run. Touch would have had nothing. Well, I had to replace a bolt that had seized on the Aries, but apart from that, it's all very well engineered and over engineered, really. But gives the power the boat needs to sort of control its yaw and heading.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's all cool. Okay, so you got plenty of followers. You anything you want to say to them or tell them about? Anything that comes to mind?
I sort of have. It's a bit like how I'm in awe of Jasmine Harrison. I'm also in awe of the followers because we've been doing this for over a year, and many of them have been following us for that time, I think, and we have a sort of relationship with many of them that they message us privately, and they're also saying that as they come to terms of the end of this race, and we are, it's like, oh, they've had as much, often as much interest following it as we have had sailing the race. But I think it takes a more concerted effort on their part to follow something of that nature for so long. So I have great admiration for them and gratitude that they've taken the interest they have in our race, which, without that sort of profile and for what you're achieving with McIntyre Adventures, we would be just a diminished race in a respect. They've turned it into the scale of event that it has become. And I think that bodes well for future mini globe races and mini globe transat races. That's the Will Dark fleet are getting noisy, I think, in the background. Sorry if you can hear the
Yeah,
music.
yeah, that's true. But yeah, I agree
Either
about the
that,
followers and stuff.
either that, it's a band. Sorry, either that or it's a band playing about 3 miles away, but it might as well be right next to me just now.
Oh, we can't quite hear that, but anyway. But yeah, I agree with the followers, and I really think it's going to grow rapidly in the next on the next leg as we're closing the finish. So we're going to get you guys to call us at least once, or maybe even twice, on the tracker update, so people can
Yeah,
follow it through to the end. We're going to change the time of the tracker update so it's a bit more not at like 5 o'clock in the morning for you guys. So anyway, that's part of the fun. But yeah,
yeah,
I think that's going to be your biggest problem because by the time you get back, especially back to England, people are going to look at you differently and think, "Crikey, you did it," And a lot of people that haven't heard of the race that might be hearing it from the first time, they're going to really say, "What? You're kidding me?" Because imagine if there was just one boat. It's like the French guy in
yeah.
his name now. One little person on a 19-foot plywood boat, you'd be on the front
Baluchon.
page of the Times. You know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now we've got a whole fleet.
Yeah, I
So
think
there you
there
go.
are. I mean, I'm not one to follow. I'm not particularly interested in like world firsts and all that sort of thing, but I think there are quite Josh and Jasmine were explaining there are a whole load of categories that we qualify for. I just enjoyed doing the race, and there were some very good comments. I had one of our followers was my commanding officer back in the day in an aircraft carrier when I was flying helicopters. I always had a great respect for him, and he made a comment online about how when somebody was remarking on how well, say, Dan, Renault, Pillow, and I were doing, he said, "Yeah, but this is a Corinthian event, and
Yeah,
we should have as much admiration for all the boats that finish." And I think he hit the nail on the head. He himself, he'd done the first Whitbread, I think. He's always had small yachts as well, and he's been curator of maritime museums in both Britain and New Zealand. So he really knows his stuff. And I just thought, yeah, you speak with some authority, and what you're saying is absolutely true. The race is almost now secondary. It's the achievement of completing the circumnavigation together.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That's the whole game. I mean, we've got a fleet of boats and much larger at the closing stages than I ever expected, and everyone's in it for their own personal
Yeah.
reason. Some are just, we all know what's going on, so it's all a huge achievement, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I think all of us, if in our reflective moments, we'd say that we all anticipated perhaps a third of the fleet finishing. At the
Yeah,
moment we're on track for 11 out of 15 boats to finish, and the four that retired, they were not boat failures or losses, whatever. They were largely driven by financial considerations. I think if you read
yeah,
between the lines, and
yeah,
all these boats seem to be doing well, and we just we haven't lost anybody or any boat or which is
yeah,
pretty
that's good.
remarkable, as you know from your first Golden Globe race. And there's always some trepidation as a race organizer.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all part of the fun. Okay, well, listen, good to chat.
Yeah,
We will be speaking again on the
you
way,
too,
and
Dan.
looking forward to seeing you. I'll tell you after we get off the air. Just about Gilles. Remember, Gilles, we're going to meet up in Cape Town. I think he's down there now. But anyway, that's another long story.
Gilles down there. Gilles is I miss. I've got a boat with a sound box very close, so I'm having to shout a bit to be heard. But yeah, I'm in good contact with Gilles. Looking forward to seeing him. He's a bit of a local hero here in Recife too, as he sailed here. And I think I'm delivering some of his favourite canned drinks from Brazil back to Antigua for him.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, stay safe. Have fun at the Carnival, and we'll see you in Antigua very soon.
Looking forward to it, Don. Looking forward to seeing you and JJ, and a big thank you to all the followers.
Yep.
Yeah, look, this next leg, I hope we put on a really good show for you, and you get some really tight racing in,
Yeah, we'll
and
just
see
go
everybody
catch.
safely arrive in Antigua.
Yeah, go catch Renault, eh? See you later.
All right. Yeah, that's never easy, but it's possible. Let's see.
Okay, good one.
Thank
See ya.
you. Bye then.
Looks like the sheep's hooked up. No, no. Got a no, he's now on the end of the bowsprit, so the tack is down. Clue's ready to sheep. Here we go. Boom! There it is. He's off. Whoa! He's away. Now watch this. Boom, boom. Okay. That's nice. That's very nice. Yeah, yeah. That's a beauty. Finally. Jeepers. Okay, now it's on. And he'll carry that all through the night, I reckon. So, yeah, that looks good. Very specky. Very specky. I'll do a donut in a minute. Just hold this. He's chomping along. Yep. He's chomping. Wouldn't want any more breeze on that. Now all of a sudden it's blowing about 12 knots. Probably going to puff a bit more, but look at the white caps up there. Yeah. How far can you go? This is our biggest kite. So, all pretty cool. Whoop, here we go. Ooh. Well, this is a bit of fun. Stuff there. I'll try for a donut while it's calm. Ooh, he's getting a bit over pressure here. That main's got a everyone will have ideas on what's supposed to happen here, but the main's go a little bit more. Get rid of the head sail. Yep, he's got a downfall on that, so you can, sorry, go. Okay, I'm going to do a donut while he's fluffing around with the head sail. So get ready for the donut. Jeepers, he's flying. Didn't quite get it.